Hello and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by two friends who love cinema. Tonight you'll be staying in room 170, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, the final volume of the trilogy directed by James Gunn. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we fly off into the beautiful sky with Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3.
He didn't want to make things perfect. He just hated things the way they are.
What's going on, all my Guardians, and thank you for checking back in. As always, if you're listening on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. It goes a long way to help the channel, as always. I'm Gus. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Alvaro,
What's up, guys?
and we're here to talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy. I do think that this is probably one of the Marvel franchises that we like the most, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the best one since Ant-Man.
Here we go. So
the jokes are started.
Not to get into it too fast, but I really enjoyed this film, and I think you did too, right?
Yeah, no, in all seriousness, I do agree with what you're saying. I think we talked about this off pod earlier today. I do think it's in the top 5 of the MCU.
And I know, I mean, we don't usually do this, but tonight's special guest, I know she enjoyed it as well, right, Mia Goth?
It's a vibe, isn't it?
But it definitely is a vibe. I think that's probably why it's definitely in my top 5 of the MCU. I think James Gunn, maybe because he knows he's going to DC, kind of wanted to show him off and see what they're going to be missing from this trilogy. Very impressive.
So, I mean, I feel like this episode might be a little different because I'm going to go out on a limb and say that everybody's familiar with this who's probably watching this.
Yeah, exactly.
I think The Guardians is pretty accessible. I think most people like it, right? I don't know if maybe like an older crowd who maybe not into like quirky sci-fi or whatever. I don't even know if I would really call it that. But I do think your general movie audience just knows what the Guardians of the Galaxy
You know
are.
what's interesting about that though is that because there is similar to what we've had discussions like the Star Wars ones, there is older heads that obviously, because they should resonate with it because James Gunn likes this stuff, you know. So people in James Gunn age, you would think would really like it because those comic books were for them too. So it is interesting that sometimes I guess you would say the people who weren't nerds before, right, wouldn't really care about this, but it does seem like people James Gunn's age. Which we'll get into later about how much James Gunn probably seems like his whole career was set up to make a movie like this.
Yeah.
It'd be like, but it is interesting to sometimes just see how well these movies are kind of universally liked.
So do you want to get the rankings out of the way kind of fast? Is this the best one?
Oh, out of 3?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I think so. At least for me.
Do you think that it's an ascending order, 1 to 3?
I think no. I think I still would put the first one in front of the second one, so it's 3, 1, 2.
Why though? Just because it's the first one?
No, I think like while we've talked about how much I like Kurt Russell in the second one, I do think the second one seems to be more centered on just Quill, right? And
yeah,
I think that the first one, because they're trying to establish the team, it does kind of give you the whole everybody. So then this third one, it went back to that. So it did seem like to me like the second one, they were trying to get you to care about Quill more, which is fine. I don't hate the movie. I'm just saying I think that I do enjoy, after seeing this third one, that whenever they're all together and then we do get tad bits of why they care about each other so much.
I just know my big gripe with the second one. Even though I rewatched it this week and I do enjoy it a lot. I just didn't like that the first movie was about making them a family, and then the second movie spends the whole time splitting them up. And like you said, it really is just Peter's story. But the first one, Ronan is just so. Even if he's not bad, he's just so whatever.
He's the worst compared to especially the other 3. That's for sure.
What do you mean the other 3? Or
like
you mean Thanos?
Sorry, the other 2.
Or not? Sorry, Ego and the High Evolutionary.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of weird that the whole franchise is kind of based around daddy issues too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about Beau is Afraid recently. That's like the ultimate mommy issues movie, but this is a trilogy of about kind of fucked up fathers, honestly.
Which is funny that we just kind of talk about, like, in the second one, it's Quill's story, which I personally don't have. I do think, before he became a big thing, Chris Pratt in Parks and Recs was obviously, like, I enjoyed the show when it was out. I don't know if as much as other people, but he's a funny guy. And I do think that when he was Star-Lord, that is the only role of his, besides maybe in the Lego movies, where I'm like,
Not Super Mario.
yeah, where I do thoroughly think that I'm glad they picked him, and that's not something I really feel in any other of the movies, like I said, especially in Jurassic World and stuff like that. So while I'm bringing it down because it's very based on Quill, it's funny that I like so much this one because it's based on Rocket. It's taking so much from one character. It's kind of doing the same thing I'm telling you that I don't like from the other one.
I mean, low key, is he the best character in like the entire MCU?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're also talking about someone here. I know they don't do much, of actually being there, but it's Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I know at least in the first one that it was James Gunn's brother, the guy who plays, what's his name? Sean Gunn.
Sean Gunn.
Yeah, so I know that in the first one he did the mocap for Rocket. So I don't know if he still does, but that was a big thing before. And it's funny because when we were watching the movie and the credits end and there's like a picture of Kragan, and you're like, talk about nepotism. That's a guy who would never sniff a movie set if his brother wasn't James Gunn, right?
Yeah. Seriously.
But I digress because he's not really that important. But yeah, I mean, Rocket, I do think after the third one, I don't think it's recency bias. I do think that he's probably maybe the best character in the entirety of the MCU. I know Iron Man it's easy for him to take the cake because he's like the granddaddy of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I don't know. For me, especially with the recent releases post Endgame, I do think that this is the closest I've gotten to getting that feeling since then.
I agree with that, which is I really thought about this for a long time between watching the movie with you and the first time I watched it, why I felt like that. And I think it's because the movie starts off with desperation. And like the movie already starts off with, what they've been around, we're in nowhere. I don't have to explain to you anything. And then all of a sudden you're thrown into the shit. And I think that is exactly how Infinity War started, remember?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, you didn't waste any time. You know that I already know who this is. And you're going to give me this third movie and it's kind of long, but all of it is part of this adventure that's why I'm here for.
Yeah, that's true. Post Endgame, they did a lot of resetting up. So, Shang-Chi and what else did they have come out that was brand new? Well, they had the Black Widow movie, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I went and looked. I've seen 31 of the 32 Marvel movies, and the only one I haven't seen is Black Widow. So I'll probably finish that sometime this weekend just to, the completionist in me.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that one's better than Ant-Man. What I was going to say, like, you have the establishment of the changing of very iconic characters. We talked about earlier today, kind of Captain America. So you have that show, Captain America. So a lot of the shows came up and kind of just gave background story to characters either that you had already not given too much info, but it's all because the main characters are gone. And what that's really done, I guess, is we talked about this in the Ant-Man episode, is that the actors that they brought in, not necessarily the worst actors, but I don't know Simu Liu from anything else, and I think that plays a very big part. And I know maybe Iron Man,
yeah,
Robert Downey, like I know that was it revitalized his career for the way that he was seen, but I just don't see any of these new actors or even Letitia Wright, right? Like as the new Black Panther, I just don't see this role being something that's going to make them stand out. I don't really feel like that. I do think when I see them on screen, it seems like another job for them.
Does it feel kind of JV to you now? Like that, we're just watching the JV team.
Yeah,
and that's probably why this felt so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, finally.
Like these guys kick it with Thor. Thor wanted to hang out with them, and like they became such a crucial part in Endgame and Infinity War. And you had all those funny anecdotes from Rocket for the whole, not just the 3 movies, but we've been with them they've been through the Infinity Saga, just the last of it is remnants of the Infinity Saga still.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe that I was feeling the things I had felt pre-Endgame. I was like, wow, I have really felt dead inside watching these movies since then. And this is the first kind of return to form. I I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know if this is a sustainable way to make these movies with people no one cares about. Like, I know that sounds awful. Yes, people care about Simu Liu or whoever, the girl who plays America Chavez, but it's just not the same. And I do think there's always been that weird thing of them starting with their like D-list characters and working their way up because they couldn't use the X-Men or the Fantastic Four or Spider-Man, right? And now I guess not now because the Iron Man is gone, but now it's like, oh, what are these Z-list characters? Because you still haven't given me the A-list. So what you were saying earlier too about the Guardians of the Galaxy being like an obscure team or like something that nerds are into, it's like you would think, but even then, like that's like the deepest cut. Like you were telling me this story about going to the alleys in LA and how one time when you were younger, you had to go down one that was like, and then you keep going and going and going, and then you open the door and it's pitch black, and then you keep going. You know what I mean? And that's where like they pull the Guardians from, right? And I just don't understand why that works. I will give the full credit to James Gunn, right? Because I feel like if it was somebody else, definitely not. Like if Peyton, what's his name? Peyton.
Is it for Ant-Man?
Peyton Reed, the guy who directs the Ant-Man movies. These would be awful.
Yeah, there was a lot of comparisons. God knows the Ant-Man writer is also a big, huge issue that I have with here. But I do think that plays a big role. I don't necessarily think that, like, James Gunn almost held on to the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I know he had done movies before, but James Gunn is who he is because of these movies. And I think that there is a mutual appreciation in between Marvel letting him do what he wants, because knowing that the audience really does respond to how James Gunn makes these movies. He makes these movies fun. He really does. And I say that because the Suicide Squad was fun.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that movie probably a little less than this one, honestly.
I just don't love the Suicide Squad characters.
Exactly. As much as these guys. And I do think something that I had really pondered and thought about is that they were so successful with this out of the first movie that this kind of became the gimmick for the whole MCU, for them to have this dynamic and relationship that the Guardians have between themselves. But it doesn't even work then because they're not a family. But here it's like you've told me, you've heard me all the time, and you have a sister too. This is how brothers and sisters act. And here, when you find out, Quill is half god and his sister is, I forgot her name. Mantis,
yeah.
And Drax, which again, Batista is one of our favorite actors. I know that, and he just plays the comedic chops really well. I honestly think he's matured in this trilogy as an actor, and I think that's insane to think, because in any of the other movies, I don't think any of the actors I've seen have gotten better.
I don't know if any of the Marvel directors have the same juice as James Gunn.
Yeah, and it's funny because this is it.
Because he shouldn't have.
No, there should be. I mean, like you brought him up, Peyton Reed. There is no reason why Peyton Reed shouldn't have a transformation like James Gunn. Because if your niche,
were we just missing something and he did?
Because it's like so like when Chloe Zhao did the Eternals, that's not her in her element. So, like, you don't expect it to be necessarily like, this could be bad because she's doing something new. This is challenging for her. But Peyton Reed is like, isn't your whole career, didn't you want the big shot? And then now that you have it, you're kind of, you're content with who you got as a writer, and you're content with this product. James Gunn doesn't seem to be very satisfied.
He doesn't feel like he was for hire, even though he may have been. Because I know, like, he pitched the story of the Guardians probably like 11, 12 years ago now. And he was just like, I just felt like I had no shot. There was no way they were going to do this. But I think it was honestly their smartest move, because he's not as good as Ryan Coogler is as a director of non-Marvel movies, right? I would say he's probably on par with like Taika Waititi, like in the non-Marvel movies. But then, like, if we're going just straight up talented filmmakers here, it's got to be Sam Raimi because of fucking Multiverse of Madness. Even though, like, the good things about that movie is all the Sam Raimi-ness, right?
Like what they let
and
him
then
do.
Chloe Zhao is probably the most technically gifted filmmaker. But then, like you said, when you take her out of her element and you're asking her to do what is essentially like Glub Shido, she's kind of like, I mean, I guess
she doesn't care
Chloe
about the
Zhao would
Glub
be
Shido.
more tuned probably directing Dune.
Exactly.
I know that's a passion project and a one-man vision, right?
But I could see
I'm just saying
yeah,
something maybe a
in that
little more
direction.
serious,
Yeah.
or I don't know, even like if she had directed the new Hunger Games movie that's coming out, I'd feel like, okay, I could see that, but that just felt like such a miss. And with James Gunn, I just think that he's probably their smartest move for one, and had the heaviest influence on the entire MCU. I just don't think the Russos do, even though they were really the players. You know, like they're the ones who got the
Team
the
together,
freedom, be in the sandbox. Here's all the toys. Do whatever you want. And although Infinity War and Endgame are fun, I don't feel like they really had any original ideas except for what if it was cool if they were all together.
I mean, it is based off of this. We, for years before the movies came out, and when we knew they were going to come out, when we and you started hanging out, we talked about these comic renditions of Infinity War and things that have not even happened yet that we still wonder if, like, are they going to do zombies? You know what I mean? All these things that we've already read these stories a long time ago. So we know that they're drawing from the best of the Infinity War stuff. A lot of the frames that they've shot were literally from the comic books, you know? And that's the stuff that we like. And,
Looks like shit compared to the comic
yeah,
book.
exactly. And that's the stuff that we like. That's why we like those movies so much. But I do think that this movie specifically has all that same stuff. Like Nowhere literally looks like it does in the comic books, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think it's something worth noting because even you, when we walked out of this, you were able to notice, and I think anybody who really just pays attention to this stuff is, I don't know if they necessarily did good CGI, but they at least tried, I would say, double the amount of what they usually do for this movie, especially if you compare
Where did he
it
find all these non-union workers, right?
Ant-Man, yeah. Especially if you compare it to Ant-Man, because I told you, like, there's a lot of scenes that it does look like it should be in the like in the, what is it, in the microverse, right?
The quantum verse.
I'm sorry. The quantum verse, like, it does, like, they look exactly the same. They try to make it look like galaxies. But in this movie, I don't know. It could be as simple as, I do think there's a lot of creative shots in here. I remember seeing there's a shot of the villain when he's just sitting there thinking, the camera just spins. That's not something that I'm used to seeing in a Marvel movie anymore, at least. You know, be like, that's something I see in Possessor.
And you know, these are like baseline
these
movie
are
making
crazy
techniques. And then, but it's just, I'm so deprived and so starved of seeing this in Marvel movies. And I'm like, wow, he actually just like moved the camera, and not because of punches or because the camera needs to follow a character who's been knocked 100 feet and is flying.
Exactly.
Like, no, just because, well, why not just move the camera?
And to not make the, whatever it is that he was shooting, to not make it look so flat. You know, like, or I just think a big thing that it does, and we talked about this because it is a very simple mechanic. Oh, you just turned, but that's cinematic language making me think he's pondering, he's thinking, he's in his element, and those are the things that they don't.
Low-key, at least it makes you think, like, fuck, at least this guy's seen another movie before. We're like, I don't know, I saw Stanley Kubrick do this and I thought it looked cool. You know, even if it's as simple as that. Like,
exactly.
At least he's inspired by something, not just
Flash Gordon.
Okay, well, exactly. We'll talk about that later. Flash Gordon ass movie. It isn't just like, oh, I don't know, the guys are standing here, so let's just put the camera right in front of them. You know,
Yeah.
it's like there was a couple of, well, I don't even know if it's a faux pas, but it used to be called like a Dutch angle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a couple of those in this movie, and I was just like, hey, look, you know what I mean?
He's
I'm like, there's
seen
no
a
reason
movie.
for that to be there except for just like, hey, look, he did the thing. The camera's to the side.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's just because also another thing that I think added a lot to it is something that I haven't seen in a long time is the sets.
Yes. Go on.
Especially like the villain's lair type stuff. Like, as big fans of sci-fi, this movie is ultimately a sci-fi movie, and there's just some sets on here that I think I love them as just a sci-fi head to be like, this is what I would think is a villain's lair, and I think that even. I know that James Gunn said for these movies he just wanted to evoke the same thing that people felt when he watched Star Wars. And honestly, I know that's swinging really high, but this movie copied a lot from Star Wars, and I do think even down to how much I think the ship has become iconic. You know, like, I mean, even through Infinity War, Thor is riding through this. You see that ship, it's the Guardians.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
like they've used 3 different ships, but I get what you mean. Yes, the
Yeah,
Guardians.
lately, yeah, that's true.
The Milano, the Benatar, and the Bowie. Just saying. Just saying. Hey, you know what though? I know all that shit because I've hated on Marvel so many times, right? But what have I always told you? You can't hate it if you don't love it, right? So yes, I know what all 3 ships are called. So yes, I can complain about the CGI looking like shit, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true.
I did want to say I wanted to go back to that a little bit. about the differences between like Quantumania and this CGI. I don't think that this is one of those situations like Pam in The Office, like they're the same exact picture.
Oh no.
And there's quite a few people out there who they'll be like, you can tell me this looks like shit and this doesn't. What's the fucking difference? And it's kind of just throwing them off, but it's like, do you have no taste? You can't just fucking see the difference that like the texture, the depth, the extra details that they've bothered to put into this versus like the brown purple sludge in fucking Ant-Man that's supposed to be like the galaxy, right? Like I get that it's supposed to look like Venus or whatever, one of those gas planets. But then when you look at something like the Flash movie that's coming out, and while that looks cool, when you see the Fortnite loading screen, and like, so there's no difference between that and Avatar. You can tell me there's no difference between that and Avatar,
And I mean,
you know?
even because we're
Or
talking
that and
about-
Guardians of the Galaxy, or that and Wakanda Forever, you know?
I like you can even compare it because it seems like we did the episode on it, but we weren't content with Ant-Man. Compare the Flash to even Ant-Man, and the Flash looks worse, like you're saying, even in between
I'm
that.
like, damn, I literally didn't think it could get worse than this.
And I think a lot of the big thing, because we had talked about this earlier today as well, or no, yesterday after we saw it, was that you had said that you had only really thought one scene in the whole movie looked bad. And the Ant-Man, the whole movie looked like that scene, you know. And I think there's duration of how bad something looks as well.
So speaking of the sets and stuff, I honestly think that I don't understand why they're not doing this.
Yeah.
Is it especially when you think about the tie-ins and stuff? So like when we were sitting there watching it, and it was in the Christmas special, and it's in the movie because it's their headquarters now. But you know they all live on nowhere, and like those. I mean, honestly, it looks kind of dystopian when you're looking at it. I'm like, I know this is supposed to be like a happy society that this ragtag group of outliers and misfits found. I'm like, bro, these people are living in storage containers.
They're literally storage containers.
I was like, what in the Ready Player One is this?
I
right.
didn't think about that. Too.
But I say that to say that I loved that it was just like you can just feel it that it's there, you know. But then the cynic in me is like, did they only let him do this so that they can build this in a Disney theme park somewhere?
Yeah, I mean,
it's like those are the pros and cons of the whole thing, right? Which, just taking it on face value as a movie and not thinking about that, I'm like, yes, please do more of this. Like, is this really all it would take for your movies to just be like this much better?
Yeah.
As if you're like, I don't know, what if they were actually fighting outside?
It's like the sidetrack would be like of why I have a soft spot for the Guardians of the Galaxy. It might be literally as simple as like we've even been on the ride. You know,
True.
Like it's the one part of the MCU that I have no bad things to say about, and it's been there for a while. Like all of these characters have been a part of it went past the Infinity Saga, and we were talking about
all
it
of
now,
the
you know?
bad things I have to say about the Guardians have nothing to do with James Gunn. It's what the Russo brothers did to them.
Yeah,
Because, you know, if you're a Marvel fan and you're listening to this, I don't know how many Marvel fans actually pay attention to the actual news that surrounds these movies versus just what they're saying about it online, like amongst themselves. But that James Gunn, Taika Waititi, anybody who was really involved with these movies, they're not very happy with the choices that the Russo brothers made for their characters, because like, what the fuck, man? Like I have this love triangle, or not this love triangle, but this will they won't they with Gamora and Quill, right? And by the second one, it's like, oh look, they're like a happy family, they're in love, whatever. And then you go and you just ruined my whole story, dude. What the fuck? Like now I broke his mask. Now he has a new mask. Or fucking I wanted to have this happen with Gamora. Oh, well, she fell off a magic cliff. Like Star-Lord even makes fun of it in the movie. And I thought that was one of the cool little touches, because I'm like, is Disney and Kevin Feige too stupid to realize that? Or is it like the She-Hulk thing where they're just like, yeah, we're in on the joke that we suck and we're monsters?
yeah.
You know, because like one of the beats in this movie is that they have to go to this place, OrgoCorp, that's like, well, yes, it is a comic relevant thing. It does exist in the comics. It's basically like a stand-in for the Disney Corporation. I saw it that way, at least.
Yeah.
They literally called it like, this is the like the biggest IP machine in the galaxy.
Yeah,
Like,
we have to
you know,
we have to go pick up.
I'm
the biggest
butchering it,
IP.
but they basically, you know, that's what they do. They make IP. I feel like, so for James Gunn to call them the villain on the way out, I did enjoy that. But then, I don't know, man. When you learn enough about how these fucking businesses run, they'll Disney's okay with you making a joke about how they're evil if it makes them millions of
Yeah,
dollars.
let's laugh at me, but like you'll pay to laugh at me, right?
You know, and like that's kind of what it felt like was going on here. But in the grand scheme of it all, I enjoy that we have this movie, and I'll take the Marvel dub on this one. You know, I'm like, good for you, Marvel. Good for you, billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's because at the end of the day, so far they've been not hitting too many of them. And I would say they've been taking a lot of L's on the movies. Like, I know that they rack in money for them, of course, still, but seeing them like lose it for Ant-Man and seeing just honestly, even though I like elements of it, just what Doctor Strange was not what I wanted, at least. For them to still be able to, and I honestly do not give them credit for this. I do think it's James Gunn, but that he has an idea of what you would want to see in a superhero movie still. I think there is still components that any person like us who watches a lot of films, like I watch a Marvel movie because I don't want it to look like a Chloe Zhao movie. Yeah. I want it to.
So Ryan Coogler is a big fan of the comics as well, right? But I gotta say, is James Gunn the only one of these MCU directors who could really say they liked comic books before it became their job to like comic books?
Yeah, because it looks like it, you know?
Yeah, and I think that carries. Or, like you said, Flash Gordon earlier, I do believe that he's legitimately watched that and thinks that's a good movie.
Yeah, and just like loves it.
I don't think that he was like, okay, I'm going to make this movie. Oh, what else is like this? Okay, oh, it's like Flash Gordon, right? Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen Flash Gordon. Yeah. Like, it does feel like, yes, I love Star Wars. Yes, I love Flash Gordon. Yes, I love... It's hard to say, like... I would like to check his nerd card and be like, do you really like the Guardians of the Galaxy before this? You know, because I'm not saying I'm on equal level nerd, but before that 2008 reboot that brought Star-Lord and the team that everybody knows now, they're from like 1968.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because like I know you did a little bit of research of all the past renditions of this and the comic books and the teams and everything, and I'm sure if you Google search the trends, it was dead in the ground up until 2008. Nobody was really looking.
2008 is when they brought it back, and since then they've been popular.
Stan Lee was like, "You guys want to make a movie about what?"
Yeah, I don't even know Stan Lee, but
Jack Kirby, because I think he's the one that did these. But you know, no, but like I just like you said, they were pulling out of the D characters because they couldn't pull the A's, and it's really hard for me to think at one point that they had the trust to think that this was going to work out.
You can't even call it an underdog story for Marvel, but it is kind of it is for James Gunn. And then especially when you think about the victory lap he's on right now because of, you know, they fired him.
Yeah.
That's one thing we've never talked about on this. This is probably the first time we've had a director who's been hired and fired from the movie that they're working.
It's interesting, but it's like he got rehired because that's what the people wanted. The people wanted the Guardian. He wanted him to finish the Guardians, and look what he gave us. And it kind of proved the point of why people were like, no, like, okay, his joke was really bad. And I mean, obviously,
he made a cringe fucking joke. Obviously,
has been had millions of times. We're not the people to bring any new insight.
Let me tell you why this is wrong.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, that did seem very going to look behind to find something wrong with this because maybe you didn't like the second movie so much because no one seemed to have an issue with this stuff. And I don't know if I've seen anybody uncancel themselves like that.
True. Just like, no, I'm not going to be.
Or like Disney be like, you're right, he's bad. But then you're like, yeah, and your Guardians are going to suck because, yeah, you should come back. Yeah.
Like I just said, anything to make money.
Exactly. Like, you know what? Your joke wasn't too bad.
James Gunn, pedo jokes, huh?
Yeah.
Cute raccoon?
Yeah.
I think you'll be okay.
I think we'll be fine.
They're like, he's no Woody Allen. He's no fucking... what's his face? The other canceled dude, Roman Polanski.
Yeah, he's like, let me make a movie Peter will like. I know who'll back me.
So kind of keeping on the James Gunn thing, what I was talking about a minute ago with his lack of influence over what happens in like Infinity War and Endgame and stuff like that. I do know pre him being fired that he was starting to become consulted on all of the projects, anything, even the ones he wasn't working on. They're just like, what do you think about this? Like he got to give notes on Black Panther. He gets to give notes on Doctor Strange because the first movie and the second movie being such a win, I honestly do think that there may have been a time when James Gunn was not going to take over Kevin Feige's job like anytime soon, but that he would be the next guy.
I think
because I don't think it's the Russo brothers, because I just don't think they're creative enough to do it. And I would say the Gray Man and everything else they've made.
Man, yeah, I was gonna say
Cherry, be like, all of these other things. The show they have, the $300 million.
don't give them the sandbox of characters and see what they do.
Yeah, like they're I'm sorry, it's Jover.
Carried.
It's Jover.
Carried.
The honeymoon is over with the Russo brothers. Fucking AI loving son of bitches.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to be Taika, right? And I do think they've always understood that Ryan Coogler is a here for now type of thing. I don't think when Ryan Coogler's 50, he's going to be making Black Panther 6 or whatever. But it's been a huge fumble for them that now he's gone, because I think because of the hiring and the firing, they've tried to take everything that he did. Okay, I think the MCU is very James Gunn-ified, right? Like, it used to be the Robert Downey Jr. era, and now it's like the James Gunn era. But no one knows how to do it like he does, obviously. And it's not like he has this, wow, he has such a deep intellect and such a humor that no one else could comprehend. But it's too obvious that that's what you're trying to do. Is like, oh, these all kind of need to be like this now. So I just think that it's a rare, like I was saying, a rare win for him, because who has ever uncanceled themselves and then got a better job than the job they had before, right?
He's being fully trusted to forefront DC, and it's because DC, I feel like DC knew that Marvel was dropping something that was worth picking up. Whether it works out for him, it might be DC's studio execs being cursed. I don't really think it's going to be down to him not knowing what to do with those characters, because we've talked about,
it could just be a cursed franchise
in other renditions, or I don't even think we've said this on pod, like the DC characters should be way better than the Marvel movies, because these characters are actually deeper. They are, someone like Batman is so based on people loving so much. I know we're like obsessed with them, but I do think James Gunn going into that, and the Suicide Squad kind of showed that, and Peacemaker actually, which I haven't seen, but kind of showed that his tone might be something that is going to be elevated to the standard for hero movies. And I think that is a good golden rule to move forward with them. Whether they can all pull it off, like you're saying, because Peyton Reed tries to copy the humor, the writer, Loveless, whatever.
Jeff Loveness,
like, all of, even Rick and Morty, they try to really evoke that same 40-year-old humor that James Gunn grew up with, And I just think James Gunn also, like you said, has watched movies though, so he knows it's not about just making the cringe joke. It also has to kind of make sense in a dialogue way that real people talk to each other. And a lot of the movies, a lot of times, like you said, and other movies that are kind of big budget like this, it seems like they even pause sometimes for the laugh track, Like
that's one of my big problems with the second one, is when I was rewatching it, I was like, this feels like they've built in the laughs. Like, here, pause here so you can laugh. Pause here so you can laugh. It's very unjarring. The first the first like 5 to 10 minutes of Guardians 2. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? This is not how people like interact with each other. I always kind of chalked it up to, Rocket is learning how to joke and whatever. But yeah, it's kind of weird. But
those are like, the small things that you might say are, and I again, kind of going back, like, I think those were just Marvel directions that he got for stuff like that. Like, you kind of, you should make it as funny as you made the first one, even though without those notes, it probably would have been as funny. But it's the fact that Marvel, they maybe wanted to accommodate him or let him know, we want you to be the forefront of this.
Dude, it feels like he was just like Jimmy Butler with the stat sheet, like, toss it up in the air. You know? What'd you say I should do? Nah. What are you gonna do? Fire me?
Yeah, being like, the mouse always finds the tweets.
Even just to harp on this one last time, his influence over the MCU. The clip that's going around about how he came up with the Infinity Stone lore in 90 minutes and they based their whole thing off of that.
He's like, I don't know. They told me to, and
they told me I had to use the Power Stones. So, well, all right, like, here we go.
And we've made this joke. People that we come in contact with on a daily basis have even made the joke, be like, that's the plot of a child's movie, But at the end of the day, like we said, somebody who grew up with these comic books, like, the teenagers that were reading these books, it was just the Power Stones, and it's not. he has an understanding this is not as deep as some people think it is, but yet will still satisfy you to know that doesn't mean you have to undercut and make the story lame.
No,
he does go to the James Cameron
These are very
school.
sincere. These are very sappy. These are very heartfelt. These feel real. The emotions are there. You know, yes, is it weird when Chris Pratt is sitting there crying over a CGI raccoon, whatever? Yeah, but in the context of the movie, once you've just okay, I've checked in. I'm in this world.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like, oh fuck, bro. You know,
It's like when I guess because we've grown up on this, and you know we're victims of it being around us. But like when you go to Disneyland and you don't buy into the fantasy aspect, you're not gonna have fun.
no. You have to be like,
If
oh,
you're
I'm
gonna be a
in the
realist the
magic
whole fucking
world
time.
or
Be like,
whatever.
oh, this is Tarzan's house for real. Be like, how does he
This
even
isn't
fit
even
here?
proportionally accurate. Where does he take
Yeah.
a shit?
Exactly. So like you can't. I mean, being part of having that kid inside you, as I say, having the imagination, is buying into these kind of movies, and I that's where I kind of when these get the hate from some of the critics that walk in, they're trying to judge it the same as Aftersun. Like these are not. Come on, I do feel like
There's a way to respect this and still understand that they're different.
you're not gonna. No, they're not gonna touch the same things.
You know, I've been quite salty talking about these movies over the course of the podcast when we have, and I don't know. I think I feel even more justified in being like, see, they've been bad. They've been worth the criticism.
Yeah.
Because look at this. Like, well, how about that? People love it. Everybody's best movie since Ant-Man. That shit is so funny. That always cracks me up. So getting into the movie a little more, I don't want to spoil it or anything, but let's just talk about our favorite parts. I mean, what do you like? What do you don't like about this movie?
I think, like I had mentioned a little bit before, James Gunn's decision to really make half of this movie Rocket Raccoon's really bad.
Sneaky little main character, right?
Yeah. Just, obviously, like you said, it's a CGI raccoon, but there's no secret here that this has touched a lot of people. And I think to really make a Guardians of the Galaxy finale very heartfelt and story driven is not something you would have expected. You would have expected like a lot of the things that we have wrong with the other movie. The bad guy came, and now they have to save this. And even the way that the trailer was set up, I know that you had ended up kind of connecting a lot of dots just based off of the years of watching so many trailers. You know what I mean? But they purposely put misinformation in there. We're finding out the more the years, like they purposely put stuff that's not in there because they know so many people are guessing these things now. So they try to throw you off before, but the trailer really makes you think it's going to be something. And to think that a Marvel movie could really pull that from you, it's kind of like I said, I appreciate when trailers don't just give me the whole movie here. And that's what I want to say is what I think my favorite aspect, though, is that this movie really ended up becoming very story based on a character that I knew I liked before the movie, but I didn't know that I actually, like you said, is one of the best characters in the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, not to be like, I've always felt this way, but I have always liked Rocket. I mean, I do still think Thor is my favorite MCU character overall, just because how many movies he's been in, how many cool moments he's had, whatever. But I mean, yeah, it's pretty easy to be like, I don't know, Thor, Iron Man, Rocket. I mean, he's easily the best Guardian. I think this solidifies it, right? This movie adds so much more to his story. You know, you can go back and it actually, James Gunn at least has the fucking skill to call back and remember these things and be like, oh shit, remember in the second one when Quill almost dies and Rocket's like, oh, I can't lose another friend. That means nothing when you fucking are watching the second one, but then you watch the third one and you learn about Rocket's past and you're like, oh, and like these movies have kind of lost that.
Yeah.
Or you could be like, they never actually really had it.
Yeah.
But you know what it was before? They were so,
Iron Man's
I don't want to say
parents.
unorganized. Yeah, but like stuff like that, right? Like, bitch, you never planned that. You're like, you know what I mean? Like, stop lying. You didn't plan that shit.
Yeah.
The same way that they try to like, retroactively, the little kid in Iron Man 2
Tom Holland,
who's
right?
wearing the mask, that's Peter Parker. Like, no, it wasn't. Like even still to this day, they're like, what year is it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Nobody fucking knows. Everybody's like, is it 2036? Is it 2025? How much time has passed? Because even James Gunn, I do think he takes the convenient of like, they'd be like, they asked him, how long was Thor with the Guardians? He was like, a few weeks. And then in the comments, well, actually, canonically, it was 6 months.
Yeah.
Because the post events of Endgame, Jane Foster didn't have cancer until 6 months after the thing. Like, so how could it be? And he's like, I don't care. I didn't write that shit.
Yeah,
you know?
it doesn't matter.
So
No.
to actually see the connectivity in the story versus trying to connect it to all the other things. Like, no, how about that? That's what makes a movie satisfying.
I like that
or a sequel satisfying,
Yeah,
at least.
I like that you brought that up because I was heading there. That exact thing that you talked about where he's like, I don't want to lose another friend. And you find out that he's lost probably his best friend that he's ever had before these guys. But then also when he wakes up and he asks, like the first thing he asks is, where's Nebula? It's because, and retroactively when everybody got snapped, him and Nebula spent the most time together. So he does have like this love for Nebula. And like you said, to you, it just might be or sound like, oh, where is Nebula? But then you connect, like, no, he actually would have a deeper connection to Quill and Nebula, you know what I mean? And Groot.
And I
Those are
think
the
these
characters.
movies have really been missing those small things that just make other non-Marvel movies, like, it would make them shit. And you'd be like, dude, what the fuck? The sequel had nothing to do with the original, whatever. Like, are these two different movies? But they've been so caught up in the like, oh, but you have to connect this to this. Wong has to be in Shang-Chi because you got to have a that even happens in this movie. You got to have a Doctor Strange character in there somewhere. Someone's got to know how to use the sling rings, right?
Yeah.
But at least this movie was more focused on calling back to its own movies. It wasn't like, yeah, they bring up Endgame and Infinity War because they have to, but it's never just like, hey, remember when we met Iron Man? That happened.
Yeah, and I mean, even as I think they show up on all three, the Ravagers.
The Ravagers.
The Ravagers, sorry. They show up on all three, right?
Yes, because, I mean, in the beginning of the movie, well, in the first one, because Yondu is like antagonistic.
Yeah.
They're chasing Quill.
Exactly. But I was going to say is the fact that how much the Ravagers have been throughout these three movies, but we don't really get too much information about them. But even how you can see how they've changed, and that's such like a minority characters in this whole grand scheme of everything. But the reason I say that is because, in addition to that, you get the connection to it was this big thing when it happened that Adam Warlock got announced. You know what I mean? And for him to kind of know, based off of how they fucked his writing up in the other two movies, how to still be able to twist this into a way it makes sense, and also still make there be a character development with Elizabeth Debicki's character, which is something that,
the Sovereign Leader.
it's like
Aisha.
You don't need to really get that deep with it, but he does, and I think that's what makes what I wanted to connect it to is that all the performances here from the whole Guardians of the Galaxy and everybody who's here does seem like they like doing these
We don't need
movies.
to say who they are. You guys know who they are. They're not talking about some indie movie. We're like, oh, let me give some spotlight to a Goth Rosell. Like, dude, you know who Zoe Saldana is.
Yeah.
You know who the fuck Dave Bautista is. Don't make me be like, oh, okay, well, Peter Quill is he's a space scoundrel. Be like, I'm not giving you no fucking synopsis for the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie. All right?
Yeah, no.
But yes, the whole cast does a fantastic job. Like you said, I think one of the standouts actually is Mantis, Palm Clementine,
Yeah,
because
it's
she's
in this
hardly
one.
in any other movies. I know she's going to be in the new Mission Impossible, so I'm excited for that. But I do think that she had a lot of character growth as well, and I thought that was one of my favorite parts because when I was rewatching the second one, I kind of forgot how much I liked her. Yes, she plays a vital role in Infinity War, but I felt like this was really her chance to shine as well, which I really liked because, like you said, the Guardians movies while they are about all the characters, they do take their time in each one to kind of focus on not one character each, but, this is kind of like the Rocket movie, but it also is kind of the Mantis movie by the end. I don't mean it exactly like that, but, there's a lot of character development there. It wasn't just about developing Rocket's
You find out
character.
You find out by the end of the movie, without much being said, like that there is a relationship between Drax and Mantis that is not really explored, but that was there the whole time, and that it just seems like such a layered story that the fact that I didn't get told this thing, and through cinematic language, I'm very much left feeling like, oh, Drax has someone left words here,
Yeah, I do feel that way kind of too.
And I did want to bring up because like. I really enjoyed also Nebula in this, and I know that she had her moments a lot in the Infinity Saga because she's Thanos' daughter and how
I
much
think
she was
she
tortured.
probably came out the best.
Yeah,
Rocket and Groot. Come on. Rocket and Groot. Of course they were cool when they pulled up on Thor's shoulder. Like that was sick. But I do think Nebula is the one. Like that was the one character in the franchise where I was just kind of like, I mean, I guess. And then,
Yeah.
and then her bitchy sister came along.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then for
but
her
then by
to-
now, I'm just like, she's the best one.
yeah, exactly. Because I think
She's the only one holding it down.
that's what like she puts everybody else into perspective. She's real, which is again going back to the family dynamic. I think that for Gamora and her to ideally switch, and you would have never seen that when Nebula first got introduced. So it does just seem very James Gunn's matureness to develop that story. And how do I turn the character that nobody might care about to one of the most important characters? And then you end up really feeling for somebody who suffered so much. The seconds when she thinks stuff is really fucked up, that it hits you because you're like, well, look who's saying this. This character we went through her struggle with Gamora, you know what I mean? And all this, the Infinity Saga played a lot with her. So I do think that for her at the end of this trilogy, for her to really have like the Star Wars ending is kind of it's satisfying more than it would be for other characters, you know?
My one addition to the cast, who I think needs a shout out, because she was such a good dog, Cosmo. Loved it.
Yeah, I mean, that's something, another niche part, right, of the comic books here. Cosmo, you know, the Russian astronaut dog they got sent down for, you know, he's the shit, or she's the shit. And that's where kind of I wanted to ask you more about, like, you know, there's a lot of comedic chops, obviously, in this, but I did find myself genuinely laughing for a lot of them. I didn't really feel forced. Obviously, there was a couple of cringe jokes from Quill, but for the most part, I do think Drax's comedic timing is really good.
Yeah, no, I genuinely let out like 2 or 3 like real laughs in the movie.
Like, that's funny as fuck.
Yeah, and like a lot of it
Oh,
was
that's funny.
oh my god, that shit is funny. My favorite, well, not a spoiler, but my favorite, I guess, cameo. It's something that's just been teased for a very long time that Nathan Fillion would be in the MCU somehow. Maybe he was going to be Wonder Man. Maybe he'd be somebody else. I think there was a rumor at one point that he could have been Star-Lord. But it was nice to finally see that happen. And dude, that stuff between him and Chris Pratt, I was dying.
That could have been part of like any other comedic movie. That's why, like, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't even have anything to do with them being Guardians at all.
It didn't have anything to do with space. It didn't have anything to do with sci-fi. He was just, you know, he's just like a team lead or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're just talking about how their subordinates are idiots, you know? And it was just so funny. He's like, one of them too. Like,
Yeah, he's the
you know,
boss's son.
yeah, like there was just a couple moments, like, and especially the Nathan Fillion one, I was just like, so good.
That's
and it isn't just the stupid, so that just happened,
Yeah,
you know,
and
which was in the trailer.
Yeah. That's James Gunn was joking.
You're gonna have to
with
go
us.
see. You have to go see the movie if you want to find out if it's actually in it or not. But yeah, it's just so satisfying, such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, but I think because we talked about just the favorite aspects is just the beat of the movie. I know it's long, but it because it just really seems very well made. You know, you're sitting there sometimes. I did kind of want to hark back on one character that, again, Adam Warlock here, William Poulter. Somebody I would say
Arsenal fan, yes sir.
Yes, sir. We talked about him recently in Midsummer. It's not a movie that you know, they like to call him eyebrows. You would necessarily, even when it got announced, I'm like, he's Adam Warlock. How is that going to be? I really like what he did with the character here about him being let out obviously too early. He played the comedic chops really, really good, which I think isn't something I would really, since We Are the Millers, is not something that I necessarily would attain with him anymore. But I will say there's some of like a lot of the sci-fi dorky stuff with him, and I kind of appreciate it because they kind of just roll with the fact that the Sovereign looked kind of dumb.
Yeah,
even though he's
we
OP.
talked about that yesterday. So like Gamora looks kind of like like chalky, soft, like almost like she would feel like an eraser. Like when you look at her the texture of her skin, right?
Yeah.
And like Drax looks kind of like blistery,
Bumpy, yeah.
right? But or like burned almost, like those like. I don't know if they're I don't even know what they're supposed to be. If they're like tattoos or veins or something that that red shit he has all over his body.
Oh yeah.
But that stuff's all really good. But then you look at the Sovereign and then you're just kind of like, why do they look like cheap gold paint? Like I painted myself.
Yeah, I
Like,
painted
why do
myself
they look
gold.
like Gold Dust from WWE?
Exactly.
But then like now when you see, you know, the stuff that's revealed in the third movie that wasn't in the second movie, and it's like, It might as well bring it up now because we haven't even got to this character yet. But they're just an experiment of the villain of this movie, the High Evolutionary.
Yeah, the High Evolutionary.
So he tells them to their face, like, you were just an aesthetic experiment. Like, I wanted to know what gold people look like, and kind of like shit.
Yeah, I kind of don't like it at all.
And you realize that they're obsolete, and I felt like it was with intention, which was important.
Yeah,
I was like, I know James Gunn enough to know, and I know, like you said, we've been using this term a lot lately ever since the Ari Aster movies, but the cinematic language, she looks good because she's supposed to look good. That looks like shit on purpose. And I don't give every filmmaker the benefit of the doubt. If Peyton Reed does something that looks like shit on purpose, I'm like, no, he didn't.
MODOK wasn't supposed to look like
MODOK wasn't supposed to look like that.
You just like, let's put his butt out because it's going to be funny because it already looks like shit.
How do I
right?
save this?
Yeah.
Show his ass.
Show his ass. Yeah, no, I agree. That's something we haven't talked about the villain at all.
Amazing.
I think that's how I was saving it, is why I think this is one of my top 5 MCU movies, which is very driven to be one of the, like, that is a component for all of the really good movies.
Not to cut you off, but he really is the best villain since Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah, no, he really is. If they somehow spin this into him being Kang, I honestly think if they want a big dick, he could just show up as Kang now. Like, they don't even have to address that he looks different. They're just like, all right, this is Kang now.
Yeah, because I mean, they've established with Spider-Man that not every Peter Parker would look exactly the same. It's not a bunch of Tom Hollands in multiple universes. I just think with Kang, I mean, goddamn, I never seen somebody go all in on something so hard, right?
For it to backfire so bad.
Which is like, they were right, and I mean, go back, listen to the episode. We were fucking fanning over him, right?
We've done it twice with him. You know what I mean? We did it for Creed.
Yeah. So for him to like speed run canceling his career, which maybe he needs to talk to James Gunn.
Yeah, but how do I get out of it?
No, I mean, let's be real here. He actually did something awful as opposed to a crude joke.
But we might be in the same territory here where Disney will forgive because
money.
we kind of like him.
I mean, if Ezra Miller can come back,
I'll be honest with you on the podcast. Right now, I think they'll play it cool. But I do think he'll maintain, and there'll be so much time in between having to play him having to play Kang again. That they'll be fun.
Like, he's a villain in real life too.
Yeah, but I thought you said you wanted bad guys.
Yeah,
we switch good guys like Robert. We switch bad guys like Robert Downey to good guys, and we switch good.
All
guys
right, not to just
guys.
hate on Jonathan Majors because of what he's done, because I'm not really a separate the artist from the art type of person depending on what they did. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, I don't like his political
it's a little awkward
opinions.
Because this happened technically when the movies we were watching, so it's like it's hard to be like I care about this because that already happened, but we didn't know. So retroactively, I think it's only fair to be like, obviously we don't agree with his actions. You know what I mean? And you have to just kind of be, now that you know these things, compare it to somebody else that at this moment we got this good performance as a villain, something we were not really expecting. So I
didn't think it was going to be this good.
No.
And there was no hype for it either.
Exactly. There's like, I'd be like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like, it's not like I recognize him from something else, you know?
I mean, maybe you do, like you've seen him in something else, but
So, yeah, like
we'll get
he's
his
in
name
John
right
Wick.
now because I want to make sure I get his name right. Yeah, see, how would I have known that? I really don't. Wait, which one?
The first one,
Does it say who he is?
Mr. Oconee, which I don't remember what character that is. So I'm just saying, be like, of course he's in things, but I don't really think I would expect him to take a villain lead like he did in this movie. I genuinely felt because
Okay, so his name is Chukuri Iwuji, right? But he's in John Wick 2.
Oh, and the second one, sorry.
But I mean, when you look at his filmography, let's see, we got 4, 8, 12. He's only been in 15 things.
Yeah, it's not big.
Which could be over a very long amount of time,
exactly.
which means he's not, the hottest working actor. But I mean, after this performance, not to be, too hyperbolic or whatever, but like Shakespearean.
No,
overacting.
I do think
melodramatic. He's bumping it up to 10.
I mean, they really paid off here. The
All
whole
to
gimmick,
success, by the way, when I say that.
the whole gimmick, sci-fi gimmick from a long time, that aliens would be so impressed with Earth's ability to have creative venues. I think they played that off really well here. Like, he's playing, Gregorian chants and talking about like this, like how beautiful, and it just sounded so real. It did sound like I wanted to bring this up because, again, tying a little bit back to James Gunn and knowing what he's going to do, the Superman stuff, it was very Lex Luthor. And you said that his performance, like, I could see him being Lex Luthor. And he became that maniacal evil of a character that you wouldn't think to put him on par with Thanos and Jonathan Majors, but it did feel that powerful. Like, this guy, he's got to have more in him. There's no way he's not going to come back, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, like most superhero movies, well, you know what? I don't want to say like most, actually, because quite a few of them do kill off their villains in the first movie.
Yeah.
Or they'll just introduce them, and they're like, well, you got to see him for 30 minutes, and that's all you're ever going to see.
And that's
him, right?
this isn't a spoiler, not because I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether he is going to come back or not. Like, in terms of the movie doesn't really give you a solid answer. Whether you want to go watch it and think there is a solid answer for it, sure. But I don't think they really close the door on anything.
I think James Gunn wrote himself out of the hole in a perfect way of like, if you guys want to keep using him, go ahead. But also, I get to have my satisfying ending if you're like, fuck the High Evolutionary, we're not using him again. He's too obscure, he's whatever. But going back to that whole performance and what I think they'll do, it's hard to say because it's like this is way more drastic than them changing Thanos' design from like the original Avengers movie to fucking how he actually ended up looking. But I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to say. You would think Disney would be like, fuck that. We can't hire Jonathan Majors back. We don't condone this type of violence, against anybody. But like you said, that money talks. So it's tough to say. I mean, for me at least, I'm okay if Jonathan Majors doesn't come back because this performance, it's not like they're like, in lockstep with each other where you're like, oh, wow, it's the same exact thing. But, I mean, that is.
I can still have some respect for him, even though I don't fully agree with what he did. You know what I mean? And it still feels disrespectful to be like, they're not dropping a step if they replace him with him because of what we're talking about. Before, obviously, we found out we were preaching about Jonathan Majors and how we're excited for anything that he's in. So it is dropping a step, but in the MCU's quality of their villains, it's actually not really dropping a step. Because James Gunn really did flesh out this character and made him maniacal, like you said. I do think something just funny that you said that's true is they just know the formula is to make him purple, man.
Yeah, if he's purple, probably going to be a
pretty good villain.
I wanted to talk about, because one of my favorite things about the movie, and I just mentioned it early, is the Flash gordification of this, right? Yeah. They've always had this influence, but I do think this movie, probably, I'm going to guess the biggest budget, and I'm going to guess the most freedom he's ever had. Like you said, the actual sets, right? I'm like, that just looks like it's out of some pulp 70s sci-fi movie, right? Or even the...
I believe Joe Dorowski's Dune might have had one of these sets.
Yes. That's exactly what I mean. Or that could have been in Flash Gordon. Or another one would be the... Shit, I kind of lost it here. Oh, when they're inside of OrgoCorp, right? Which is like, some people will just say anything, right? They'll be like, oh, this living planet that is flesh and blood and gooey. It's very Cronenberg. And it's like, no, it's not. No, but yes, it is. But no, it's not. It's the same way that turning the camera was like, wow, that was like Stanley Kubrick. No, it wasn't.
Like it kind of looks at the ship in 2001.
But what I'm trying to say is like, James Gunn has seen David Cronenberg movies. Like, so yeah, that is a cool idea. Like, no, it's not the same. It doesn't have the same effect. But then even the bluntness of how like cheap the inside of OrgoCorp looked, like it just looks like white styrofoam. And you're like, damn, would you have no budget on this? But it works.
Yeah,
it's like it's just that cinematic language works.
At what point in OrgoCorp, because like what you're talking about, the halls look like that, but then they take the elevator down to that floor that's all white, and then that looks better for some reason, right? But like the fact that things look so different in OrgoCorp, and it's like before. It's camp, you know what I mean? Did it look like that?
Yeah.
And I still think that he knows what is it that makes camp good to the eye. And I think that in this movie, there's a lot of things that in other movies would be camp, but because of talking about the James Cameron effect of no, these fucking characters, he is crying over the raccoon. Like, this is serious. Is that these things don't really, they don't make the movie any worse. They kind of just you live in this world. You'd be like,
I can
take
believe
this.
that Orgocorp, this most important corporation in the galaxy, just looks like white styrofoam.
Yeah.
Like I buy that. I don't know. He's got unspoken riz, you know.
Yeah, he really does. I will say, obviously, we have to bring up. I think this can be a big talking point of this movie is the animals. You know, I do think. Well, I do actually. Before I get into that, because it's tied into it, is the whole aspect of a lot of babies have said this movie's really dark,
No, it's not.
and I can understand in the context, I guess, that what's happening is fucked up, sure, but there is some scenes that I would say have horror influence, sure, but about it being scary, I don't agree. But I do think that there were some shots in there that
It's like saying pepper is spicy.
you know, okay, just not to spoil, not to spoil too much here, but like
Well, this deep into the episode. We're about an hour in. We're gonna wrap up soon. I think you're safe to spoil something now.
so raccoon fucks up the high evolutionary's face.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my favorite parts because that's
too.
not something that they would put in a movie.
Haven't seen something like that since Red Skull in the first Captain America.
And like, dude, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like,
And
I
you could be like,
remember
it's body horror. It's okay. Yeah, if you're 5 years old.
it's on the same level of Roger Rabbit, like when they throw him and it melts, or Indiana Jones melting his face. Like, yes, I guess it's scary if I was a kid. Like, I understand what you're saying, but no, it's not actually scary. But the way that they drew up his like the effects, like I could see that effect of a face being like in a horror movie.
Yeah, you're right about that. There is like these tinges of it, but
Like shadows, you know, when they're doing the shadows inside the cages, the way that they look, and like the angles that they even get for the vulnerability of the animals because they're so much smaller. I think those are all angles that you draw from horror. You know what I mean? But I don't think that at the end of the day, it's still limited to what it's supposed to be. But I did.
I
agree.
mean, they're movies for babies that are made for adults. Like, I don't know what other way to put it. So yeah, when you're like I've literally seen people on TikTok being like, that was obscene how they dropped an F-bomb in one of these Marvel movies. Like, that really shook me that they did that. I can't believe they did that.
I wanted to say that I looked into that because it was a troll post.
But but that's not the only person I've seen say that.
I was gonna say the original is a troll post, and then you end up finding the comments of people who I agree. You know, and be like, damn, like you really outed yourself. Like, because I think at the end of the day, this comes back to the conversation we're saying that the people who are watching these movies do not watch more than 10 movies a year.
You don't want to bring it up.
Yeah,
we were walking out of the movie. We were walking out of the movie, and a guy tells his friend, he's like, dude, best movie I've seen this year. He's like, 10 out of 10. And then I looked at Alvaro and I was like, what? As in, this is the 10th movie you've seen this year? This is the 10 out of 10 movies I'm going to watch all year?
I'm tapped out.
I've tapped out. There you go.
John Wick was 9. This was 10, huh?
All right. And he's like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of full. I don't know if I want to see Mission
I
Impossible.
only watch quality.
Yeah.
But you know, so you gotta give the baby food to these people, man. And I do think these little small inserts of horror like that is that it's so dark. But again, going back to comparing to the shit that we had before, it is something I appreciate them. James Gunn taking some thought. I can see that there was thought there.
Yeah, it's tough because like the animal rights stuff. Like, yes, I agree. This probably is the most successful movie for like. What do you mean? How do you quantify how successful it is for animal rights? Did this movie turn anybody into a vegetarian, or will it? You know, because isn't that
Is adoption
aren't those
up?
wins for animal rights?
Yeah, like,
like,
are adoptions
I
up?
watched that and now I fucking like fuck that. I'm not gonna eat meat anymore. You know, but I
They're like, damn, I'm not gonna put the walrus on wheels anymore.
you know, yeah. Yeah. Damn, it's actually kind of fucked up how you gave an otter metal claw arms.
Like, I'll never do that.
Some high evolutionary, huh? But yeah, you know, I'm trying to perfect society. You know what otters were missing? Claw arms.
But how do you know?
Yeah.
P13.
P13. But what I will say about that stuff is, you know, basically everyone I know who's seen the movie has talked about how that either shook them, which I'm like, are you troll posting me in real life? Or like that was really sad, huh? And not to be one of these guys, be like, but why? Because this is an anthropomorphized animal that you're seeing as a person, not as an animal. Because not to bring this up, but I'll just say cat blender, right?
Yeah.
We've seen that recently. Like, I didn't see you crying. When you watched it, but hey, a little computer generated raccoon who's gonna talk in the future. He's a person, man.
Got me.
Yeah, you got me. So, not to be all debate lord about it. Be like, I don't see you crying for people. Be like, but honestly, I don't see you crying for people.
I think
I didn't see you crying about the little kids locked up in cages.
That's
right?
why I think it becomes where I think cinema is strong to me, because I can that moment. It's not like I'm sad. I'm not sad. Like, you can make a joke and I'll fucking crack up. It's the same when you see the videos of the kids asking for hunger. Why you turn it off? They know how to pluck a string in your heart. And you can identify that it's a motherfucker. That's a low blow that you would, but it's also impressive to me that you can make me care about the shit that I know it doesn't matter. I should care more about the cat blender.
The filmmaking tech. I see people. This is a hard PG-13. No, I'm like, okay, relax. But
Watching Indiana Jones.
I don't think that because they can't show that much violence or like that much of torturing the animals because it's a PG-13 movie, right? If it was rated R, yeah, sure, gore fest, do whatever you want. But I also think that James Gunn, because he knows these movies are for babies, that like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna show you the beginning of like, the tattoo needle's going towards going towards them, right? But it's like he's actually gonna sit there and show you the blood coming out. And I do think, for me personally at least, it isn't like Knock at the Cabin where like you can just allude to the violence and I'm like, that actually made it more effective that I didn't see it. So I'm just like, so what do you got your panties in a bunch about that he tattooed a raccoon off camera? I don't know. Why are we treating this like this is the ear scene in fucking Reservoir Dogs? Be like, that was crazy. Be like, that they never actually showed that, right?
Yeah. I think I will say that I appreciated the creative techniques he went around to try to get that feeling for an audience that obviously doesn't partake too much in any other way of an actual movie with violence would show it. But like I would say, like a lot of the stuff being off the reflection of his eyes or just being half shown through recordings.
That makes it better.
Yeah, like that's it. I mean, the movie had, even as interesting, it had in the beginning of the film, it had a shot literally of Rocket when he was just the raccoon, and then how he still has the same face, but now he's obviously aged and he can talk now and everything. And I just liked that they showed like the hair growth and stuff like that, because that is something that I
beautifully rendered, by the way. Like, he's an amazing piece of CGI.
That's what I was gonna say, is that for these, besides the walrus, honestly, the walrus I did think looked a little weird, but for what they are, I did think they looked pretty good. They don't look, they're real, but I will say that they're textured, like you said. They at least didn't feel so out of place, like they weren't there.
For sure, especially because it's like, I'm pretty sure that's a real cage that they use.
That's what you're talking about. Especially like, something like the bunny with the spider legs, like you would think that would probably not look very good, but to me, I know you said the two. It's like that's my favorite one out of the four.
Yeah, because that is the like, oh man, a sicko like me, my demented mind. What if a rabbit had spider legs? And once again, what the fuck kind of purpose does that have?
Well,
right?
Yeah.
Other than like, I guess I was bored. I don't know. I got drunk and I gave a rabbit spider legs.
I'm a sicko.
Yeah, I'm a sicko like that. I will say though, hey, I'm not some heartless monster. It's not like I didn't feel it. Of course I felt it, but I think for me, I don't know if I've ever talked about this before on the show, flashbacks are not very effective for me. I don't think I've ever seen a flashback in any piece of media, TV show or movie that was like, that actually was really good. Like the flashback itself. Like, yes, conveying the information is important, so I can understand why they do flashbacks, but I've never seen a flashback and been like, that was actually the best part of the movie. The best part of the movie is when they flash back to the thing that wasn't in the movie. So
what about when Paul thinks about his dad, huh?
I don't give a fuck.
That's fair.
I don't know. Do you see where I'm coming
No,
from?
because that's not.
Are there flashbacks in movies that are like, wow, that was my favorite part of the movie? Can you think of one?
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I'm saying I don't hate the trope.
No, we get to It's a little bit of a logic brain type of like, I don't feel it because it already fucking happened. What am I supposed to do about it? But no, I think it's valid. I mean,
I was telling you earlier that's kind of like, I want to put you in my headspace at least. Like, so this already happened. It wasn't relevant until now because you decided it was, because the movie demands it to be relevant. And okay, so now we're crying about shit from 15 years ago. Like, I don't know. It never works for me. It never works for me really in any movies. Or like when I was watching Boba Fett, I'm like, are you serious? Another flashback? Like, is this whole thing going to be told in flashbacks?
That's terrible.
That's an extreme
what about,
example.
Okay, what about Bo's Afraid? The parts of him being a kid,
I mean, genuinely though, not
Like,
even
they're
just
not
saying
gonna
this
be
for the sake of my
they're not
argument.
gonna be the
They're probably the
favorite
weakest part of the movie.
Yeah, 'cause they're not, I know they're not going to be you're not going to be like, you're right, that was the favorite part of my movie.
Here's my take. Future Flash, better than Flashback.
Oh, yeah. Future Flash. That's
Alternate timeline, way
Yeah,
better. Always everything.
no.
The Green Knight, Bo is Afraid. Fucking, those are my two examples off the top of my head.
Dune.
Right? Yeah, Dune. The possible future. Ooh, Chef's Kiss. Right?
Yeah.
But when they're like, Flashback, I'm like, get this irrelevant shit out of my face. Like, oh my God.
Doctor Strange predicting was going to have a future? Based, huh?
I'm interested. But I mean, there's no need to harp on too long. I fucking really enjoyed this movie. I think it's a win for them. I think that, I will say, I don't think this means anything for the future though.
Yeah, we talked about this and we really hashed this out for a while here. No, I think this is going to be a peak in the wave of the whole, the MCU's dominance of cinema. It'll be another high, but I don't know where it'll begin again or where it'll. I just people don't really seem, and it's obviously online discussion. Seems very right wing oriented. The Marvels cannot be the worst. Cannot be worse just because it's based on 3 women. They do not care. But I'm interested.
Two of them are white.
I'm interested. You know what I mean? But I'm also not about to tell you like I know it's not gonna be better than this, and I know I might not even really like it
Because they're ladies. No, I'm just kidding.
It's like it's more based off what like I haven't spent time with. I liked WandaVision. One of the girls is from WandaVision. I think Brie Larson is hot. I'll be there. But that has nothing to do with the actual characters in this movie. You know what I mean?
Like, do I actually have to watch Miss Marvel if I want to see this? Because I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. And
I'm out.
And it's not even that I necessarily think, no, I know Miss Marvel is bad. I'm just not interested. But I do think most other people, because Miss Marvel, in terms of, it had very well reception from critics and people who did watch it. So that's how I was like, and that even for me, it was like, but I'm not interested. I'm okay.
Yeah, so
I don't know when, like, back to what you were saying. I don't know if this means anything.
I don't. I think it's a one-off. Like, yeah, that was a nice swan song.
It's a James Gunn more of like
it's a win for him more than it is for them. Because I do think that his success will carry on in the DC universe. Like, I do think that that's probably going to be successful. I don't. Yeah, I do feel good in saying that I do think it's going to be a success.
I don't think that it would. I don't think it's a hot take to think that it would go good. I think it'd be more of a crazy take to think it's going to go bad, really.
I mean, a lot of people say he's 5 for 5.
This
3 Guardians movies and then Peacemaker and Suicide Squad. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen Peacemaker the show. I've heard a lot of good things, but Suicide Squad, I enjoyed. I really did enjoy that movie. And I mean, I think even James Gunn was able to kind of. Margot Robbie gets a lot of praise from people that like are just comic book fans about how good of a Harley Quinn she is. I don't think she's been written as a really good Harley Quinn. I just think she looks a lot like her, so that's why people think she's a really good Harley Quinn. And she's a great actress. She can really just evoke her energy really well, but I don't think they've really done her justice for her to really be done like as good as she can be. So
and I don't think they're going to with like Lady Gaga either.
Yeah, and so
I don't think there's the right way to do it.
And so like in Suicide Squad though, at least I felt like James Gunn worked with her the best, and tossing her back in there and kind of giving her the cool where she takes out the whole squad up in the tower. Mm-hmm. Like just kind of shows that she is really strong. And he evoked with her in that movie a lot of what they thought in the original Suicide Squad, the Joker you would think of him. Like like he's relentless or whatever.
Yeah.
But
all right.
I guess just following up, or like, do you see this movie still lingering around at the end of the year in your top 10?
Tough. I gotta say that would be pretty abysmal.
You think so?
Like if my top 10 really is just all the IP movies I saw this year, that's really gonna suck.
I think it's early enough to not think so, like where it will be dominated by that. But I do feel comfortable in saying I think this will be in my top 10. I hope
Is
it's
this
not
gonna
very
bump
high
out
up.
one of the other IP monsters like John Wick or Creed or what was the other one? It's John Wick, Creed, Scream.
I do like this more than Scream, so I do think it would bump out Scream. But I do have a little bit in the movies that I've so far. The list is a little too shaky right now to really already start talking about it. But I do think I've already also seen movies that are not IP that I've thrown in there. So as of right now, it is more IP heavy. But I can see with the stuff that's going to come out that we're excited for that it could kind of turn back again like last year.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the last thing I'm gonna say about the movie, and it is going back to something you had brought up earlier. I think there's a chance because I will say that I did feel the same thing I felt when I watched Star Wars the prequels as a kid. I was like, oh wow, like this is what this feels like, and I don't as much as we spread the Dune agenda, we love Shai Hulud.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way when I watch. I don't feel like, wow, this is what it felt like to watch Star Wars. And for me, at least, I could see the Guardians, the 3 movies, replacing Star Wars for me as a whole. Like I don't need that. I'll just watch the Guardians. It's more up my alley. I prefer these outcast versus space wizards versus Nazis. So maybe this could end up being for me one of the more
The ones that last longer in time.
the longest lasting Marvel films where I'm like, even when it got bad,
There was
that one
one.
still fucking really good. Like
Yeah.
that one was the shit, I don't know. It could just be personal bias of like it just fits too well into the things I like because it's like elevated cheapness.
That's what I was gonna say. Is at the end of the day, this movie could be in my top 10 because this is a part of the stuff that's really for me. We talked about the sci-fi aspects of it.
You know how you said that like we always talk about Quentin Tarantino makes the best version of the shitty movies that he likes? I think that's what this is.
Made a really good Flash
But then
Gordon.
it's like and like I would like to be like, yeah, Flash Gordon is my favorite movie, or like I love me some Speed Racer, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
so
exactly.
stuff like that. So yeah, where I'm like, this is elevated garbage
Like,
to
that's
the
not-
highest.
That's
of, like,
not my. That's not my number one. That's not horror sci-fi to me. But it's in my favorite things to see in movies. It is my you got me. It's like this is a genre that That's why I'm here for the Marvel movies.
I like that. I like that we're finally on a good note with Marvel. I mean, you've been less rude to these movies than I have over the podcast episodes that we've done. But like I said, I think this one kind of makes me feel justified. I'm like, see, we were out here, like, not that we were like, hey man, this is actually kind of good, but we were very mild. Like, I mean, yeah, it's okay, right? And it does feel good to be like, this one's actually good. I can go and confidently argue with somebody like, dude, this is a good movie. Like, it's not just a good superhero movie. This is a good movie.
Yeah, and I think that was the basis that was lost for a long time. I mean, as much as we like Endgame and Infinity War, if somebody wants to argue me about them being good movies, I'd be like, I mean, I guess I could, but I could see their side more because I'm like, this is built more off the hype of the years of all this took, as opposed to Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Just watch the other two, dude. You're gonna have fun. I do think at the end of the day, the reason me and you like John Wick so much, that factor is still in this movie as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That wraps it up for me. What about you? Do you feel like you've said enough about the Guardians?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I just want to wrap it up by saying I do think this will probably be our last MCU movie for a while, just because I'll watch the Marvels maybe, but I know for a fact I don't know. All of a sudden it's going to become as good as this. I don't think so.
I need to tell people.
Yeah. So this will be, I think, and it was interesting to close it out for a bit with this movie. I am really glad that I did enjoy this. Like, really enjoyed this movie. I don't even think we need to recommend this movie. I'm pretty sure this movie is going to be the most popular
You've already
movie.
seen it if you're
Yeah.
listening to this.
So again, at the end of the day, when people sitting their butts in the cinema, I know that makes you and me happy because this is the machine that's keeping it around. And thank you for making something worth that. I'm like, I had fun this time.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have to feel like destroyed leaving the movie. Like, oh, well, that happened. All right, fuck. Like, no, thank you, Disney. Thank you, Marvel. Thank you, James Gunn. You know,
yeah.
I can admit when something's good, you know? So that wraps it up for us. Hopefully we'll talk about the Guardians sometime again in the future. There's no reason why we couldn't bring them up when we're talking about other random shit, but it's kind of sad. They're here and gone already.
Yeah, I mean,
But it is what it is. We'll let them fly off into the beautiful sky.
hey, I mean, the post-credit scene did a good way to also not really, like I said,
Well, hey, the real Guardians of the Galaxy, they're the friends you made along the way, right?
bye.